I opened my eyes in a stranger's bedroom, in a body that wasn't mine. The bathroom mirror revealed her face, my husband's ex-wife who died mysteriously last year. But something's wrong. Her memories are flooding my mind and they show he murdered her. Now she wants payback. Before we begin, hit subscribe and turn on notifications if you want more dark and twisted stories that will keep you awake at night. This video contains disturbing content that will make you question everyone around you. You've been warned. I didn't recognize the ceiling when I opened my eyes. The fan spinning lazily above wasn't mine. The sheets against my skin felt wrong. Too silky. Too cold. For a moment I thought I was dreaming, but the pounding headache behind my eyes felt too real. I sat up slowly, my body feeling strangely light, yet unfamiliar, like I was wearing someone else's skin. This wasn't my bedroom. The walls were painted a deep burgundy, not the soft blue David and I had chosen together. Framed photographs lined the dresser across from me, but I couldn't make out the faces from where I sat. Everything felt wrong. The smell of unfamiliar perfume, the sound of distant traffic that shouldn't be there. Our house was in the suburbs, far from any main roads. "David!" I called out, but the voice that escaped my lips wasn't mine. It was higher with a slight rasp I'd heard before, but couldn't place. Panic surged through me as I stumbled out of bed, my legs unsteady beneath me like a newborn colt. I made my way to what I assumed was the bathroom, flipping on the light with trembling fingers. The mirror above the sink revealed the truth, and I screamed, a sound that echoed off the tiles in that strange, unfamiliar voice. Staring back at me was Evelyn, my husband's ex-wife, the woman who had died in a tragic accident almost a year ago. Last night had been so normal. David and I had celebrated our anniversary with dinner at home. He'd been especially attentive, massaging my shoulders, telling me how lucky he was to have found me after the nightmare of his first marriage. I remembered feeling drowsy after the wine, how he'd helped me to bed with unusual tenderness. But this wasn't the first strange thing to happen. For weeks I'd been hearing whispers when I was alone, a woman's voice calling my name from empty rooms. Objects would move when I wasn't looking. Twice I found photographs of David and Evelyn that I'd thrown away mysteriously back on our mantel. David dismissed my concerns, suggesting I was working too hard, that maybe I needed to see someone. "Stress can do funny things to the mind," he'd said with that tight smile that never quite reached his eyes. A sudden flash of memory hit me like a physical blow, but it wasn't my memory. A man's hands around a throat, squeezing. David's face contorted with rage. A necklace breaking, pearls bouncing across hardwood floors. I gasped, clutching the bathroom counter as more fragments flooded in. Evelyn discovering something on David's computer. Evelyn arguing with him about women from his past. Evelyn afraid, installing new locks. My legs gave way and I slid to the floor, my back against the cool bathtub. That's when I noticed the edge of something poking out from behind the toilet. Reaching over, I pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages stuffed with newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, and printouts about body transference, spirit possession, and ancient protection rituals. Evelyn's handwriting covered the margins with frantic notes. "He knows I know. Protect myself. The ritual must be completed." The truth crashed over me like ice water. I wasn't having a mental breakdown. I wasn't dreaming. Somehow I was trapped in the body of my husband's dead ex-wife, a woman who apparently believed he'd killed before her and had been preparing for something terrible. And if I was here, in Evelyn's body, then who was in mine? Was I dead too? Or was something else happening, something even more horrifying? One thing was becoming terrifyingly clear. Evelyn wanted revenge, and she'd found a way to use me to get it. Evelyn's journal became my lifeline over the next few hours. Her handwriting grew more frantic toward the final entries, detailing rituals meant to bind a wandering soul back to its vessel. I followed her instructions meticulously, burning sage, arranging crystals in precise patterns, reciting Latin phrases that felt foreign on my tongue. Nothing worked. With each failed attempt, I felt a chill settling deeper into my borrowed bones. My reflection, her reflection, stared back at me accusingly. The more I looked at Evelyn's face, the more I noticed things I'd overlooked before. A faded scar near her temple, the slight asymmetry of her eyes. David had only shown me one photo of her, claiming he'd deleted the rest to move on. I'd thought it romantic then. Now it seemed calculated. I ventured beyond the bathroom, exploring the apartment that Evelyn had called home. The living room walls were adorned with photographs I'd never seen. David with Evelyn in happier times, their smiles genuine. But in the bedroom closet, hidden behind hanging clothes, I discovered something disturbing. A cork board covered with photos of David alone, some taken from a distance, some seemingly without his knowledge. Candid shots through windows, outside restaurants, in parking lots. Beneath each photo were handwritten notes. Meeting with who? Second phone call today. Who is she? Following him tomorrow. Evelyn hadn't been obsessed with getting him back. She'd been tracking him. As I touched one of the photos, another memory crashed through me. Evelyn following David to a storage facility late at night, watching him enter a unit with a duffel bag, leaving empty-handed. The memory shifted to her, breaking into the same unit days later, finding women's belongings, IDs, jewelry, personal items belonging to at least 3 different women. None of them were mine. The memories were coming faster now, more coherent. Evelyn discovering old news articles about missing women in towns where David had previously lived. Evelyn installing hidden cameras in their home before confronting him. Evelyn learning things about my husband that sent her spiraling into research about the occult, seeking protection from something darker than mere domestic violence. In a locked drawer by her bed, I found USB drives labeled by date. Using her laptop, I watched footage from their home security system. David's face changed when he was alone with her, a mask slipping to reveal something cold underneath. I watched him manipulating her, gaslighting her, the subtle threats disguised as concern. Then came the footage from their final argument. I couldn't bring myself to watch it fully, but I saw enough. His hands, her struggle, the sickening thud as she fell. The official story was that Evelyn had slipped in the shower. Accidental death. Case closed. "He'll do it again," a voice whispered, and I jumped, looking around the empty room. But I knew the voice had come from inside me. Evelyn was there, growing stronger. I could feel her rage, her determination, a separate consciousness pushing against my own. I clutched my head as another memory surfaced, but this one wasn't from Evelyn's past. It was from last night. David hovering over my unconscious body, my real body, performing some kind of ritual, speaking words I couldn't understand while something dark and formless moved between us. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. David wasn't just a murderer. The books, the rituals, the body switching, they hadn't been Evelyn's desperate attempts at protection. They'd been her discoveries about what David really was and what he could do. The evidence was all here, hidden in plain sight. Evelyn hadn't brought me to her body by accident or revenge. She'd been trying to warn the next victim. Me. And now David was home with my defenseless body, which was currently occupied by... what? Or who? I felt sick as I realized I wasn't dealing with a murderous husband. I was dealing with something that had been wearing my husband like a costume, perhaps for longer than I could imagine. And whatever it was currently alone with my empty vessel. I was losing control. At first, it was just moments, seconds where my hand would move without my permission, or my lips would form words I hadn't intended to say. Then minutes began to vanish. I'd find myself in different rooms with no memory of how I got there. Evelyn was getting stronger, her consciousness pushing against mine like waves eroding a shoreline. "Stop fighting me," I said aloud to the empty apartment. "We need to work together." The bathroom mirror reflected Evelyn's face, but the expression wasn't mine. A smile I hadn't formed spread across her lips. "He has your body," her voice came from my mouth, "and I know what he'll do with it." The sensation of sharing a body was indescribable, like being simultaneously the driver and passenger in a vehicle neither of us fully controlled. When Evelyn's consciousness surged forward, I experienced her memories as if they were films playing behind my eyes. I saw David through her perspective, the subtle shifts in his personality that had confused her, the nights she'd woken to find him staring at her with eyes that seemed too dark, too empty. What is he? I asked during one of the moments I had control. The answer came as another memory. Evelyn discovering an ancient text describing entities that could move between human vessels, wearing bodies until they wore out, then discarding them for new ones. David wasn't David. Maybe he never had been. Together, we pieced together the truth from her memories and research. The entity inhabiting David had been body hopping for decades. The missing women weren't just murder victims. They were previous vessels, used and discarded. Now it had my body, and someone, or something, else was inhabiting it. Through Evelyn's eyes, I watched security footage she'd secretly installed in our home. The camera showed David entering with another woman, me, my body, but the way it moved was all wrong. The expressions, the gestures weren't mine. The footage showed them preparing for something, gathering materials for what looked like the same ritual David had performed on me the night I transferred. He's helping another one cross over, Evelyn's voice explained inside our shared consciousness. They hunt in pairs. A new wave of horror washed over me. My body was now host to another entity like the one controlling David. The implications were terrifying. These things were spreading, finding new vessels, continuing a cycle that had potentially been going on for centuries. Our shared phone rang. David's number. We answered on speaker. Evelyn? His voice was cautious, probing. Is that you? Or is it Anna now? My blood ran cold. He knew. Somehow he knew what had happened. I'm coming for my wife, he continued, voice dropping to a register that didn't sound human. Both versions of her. You should have stayed dead, Evelyn. In the background, I heard another voice, my voice, laughing in a way I never would. We hung up and frantically searched through Evelyn's notes. There had to be a way to reverse this, to reclaim my body and stop whatever David and his kind were planning. Evelyn's consciousness guided our shared hands to a hidden compartment in her closet, revealing a bundle wrapped in black cloth. Inside was a ceremonial dagger with symbols etched into the blade. Blood binds and blood breaks, Evelyn's voice whispered. We need his blood, the original vessel's blood, to break the cycle. I felt her consciousness pushing harder against mine, threatening to take complete control. I fought back instinctively. Stop, I pleaded. We need each other. I need your knowledge, and you need my connection to my body. For a moment, the pressure eased. In the mirror, our shared reflection looked tired, determined. One night, her voice said from our mouth. That's all we have before the binding is permanent. Once the moon rises tomorrow, you'll never return to your body, and the entity inside it will be permanently bound. And her voice caught, I'll fade completely. This is my last chance for justice, for revenge. I understood then why Evelyn had brought me here, to her body, not just as a warning, but as an ally. Together, we might stand a chance against David and whatever inhabited my body. Separately, we were already lost. We gathered what we needed from Evelyn's research: the dagger, herbs, protective symbols. The ritual to reverse the transfer would require perfect timing, David's blood, and something I wasn't sure we could manage, getting close enough to my original body to reclaim it without falling victim to whatever now possessed it. As night fell, we prepared to face David, knowing we were outmatched but out of options. What waited for us wasn't just a confrontation with a murderer, but a battle against something ancient and inhuman that had been perfecting its predatory skills for longer than we could imagine. We arrived at my home just after midnight. The house looked exactly as I'd left it. The porch light still burning, David's car in the driveway beside my own. From the outside, everything appeared normal, but I knew better now. Let me lead, Evelyn's voice whispered inside our shared mind. I know how he thinks, how he moves. I relinquished control, feeling myself slip into the background of our shared consciousness. It was strange watching her hands prepare the ritual components we'd brought. The muscle memory wasn't mine, but I could feel the determination flowing through our shared body. We entered through the back door, using the key hidden beneath the garden gnome, a hiding place only I knew about. The house was eerily quiet, but for the soft murmur of voices coming from the basement. David never used the basement. I'd always found it too cold, too damp. Now I understood why he'd insisted we leave it unfinished. Evelyn moved our bodies silently through the kitchen, retrieving a knife from the block on the counter. Not for the entity, conventional weapons would be useless, but we needed David's blood for the ritual. She tucked it into our pocket alongside Evelyn's ceremonial dagger. As we crept toward the basement door, a floorboard creaked beneath our feet. The voices below instantly silenced. "They know we're here," I thought to Evelyn. "Good," she replied. "We need them to follow the path we've set." Earlier, we'd prepared the house while they were gone, painting hidden symbols at strategic points. The doorways, the windows, the mirror in the hallway. Evelyn's research had shown that the entities could be temporarily trapped within specially prepared boundaries. We just needed to lure them into position. The basement door flew open before we reached it. Standing there was me, my body, my face, but the eyes were all wrong, too dark, too knowing. Behind it stood David, but his movements were jerky, unnatural, as if his body were a poorly fitted suit. "Evelyn," my body said, but the voice was hollow, echoing as if coming from somewhere very far away. "How unexpected. I thought your consciousness would have been consumed by now. And I thought you'd be smart enough not to return to the scene of your crime," Evelyn replied through our shared lips. The thing wearing my body laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. This vessel recognized the house. The emotional attachment made it easier to control. Humans and their sentimental connections, so predictable. As they spoke, they advanced toward us, forcing us to retreat up the hallway, exactly where we wanted them to go. "What are you?" I managed to push the question through our shared lips. David's body tilted its head at an impossible angle. "We are the travelers, the ones who found the spaces between bodies. We've worn thousands before you, and will wear thousands after." "Not anymore," Evelyn replied, backing us toward the living room where we'd prepared the central trap. What happened next unfolded with dizzying speed. They lunged at us simultaneously. Evelyn spun our body aside, slashing David's arm with the kitchen knife as he passed. Blood spattered across the floor, across the hidden symbol we'd painted there hours earlier. It began to glow with an eerie blue light. The entity in my body screamed, not in pain but in fury. It recognized the trap too late. The symbol beneath David's blood expanded, creating a barrier neither entity could cross. But we needed more time to complete the reversal ritual. "You don't understand what you're interfering with," the thing inside David hissed, its voice no longer even attempting to sound human. "We've been perfecting this cycle for centuries." "I understand enough," Evelyn replied, unfolding the paper containing the reversal ritual. She began to recite the words, our voice growing stronger with each syllable. That's when the front door burst open. In the doorway stood a woman I'd never seen before, middle-aged with haunted eyes and a determined expression. The entities froze, genuine shock registering on their borrowed faces. "Rebecca," the thing in David whispered. "His first wife," Evelyn's thoughts explained to me. "The one who supposedly died in a car accident 5 years ago. I found her in a psychiatric facility when I was investigating David." Rebecca stepped into the house, completing the triangle between us, the entities, and herself. In her hand was a small cloth doll with locks of hair woven into it, 3 different colors. Mine, Evelyn's, and what must have been her own. "I've been waiting," she said quietly, "gathering strength, watching. You didn't know I was still connected to that body, did you?" She nodded toward David. The entity in David tried to lunge toward her, but remained trapped by the glowing symbol. Rebecca joined us inside the protective circle, completing our makeshift coven of 3 victims. What followed was something I can hardly describe. A battle fought not with physical weapons, but with will, with memory, with the sheer force of 3 souls against 2 ancient parasites. The ritual combined with Rebecca's doll created a channel, a pathway back to our original bodies. I felt the pull first, a sensation like being yanked by an invisible cord. My consciousness began separating from Evelyn's, each of us drawn toward our true vessels. But the entities fought back, clinging to their stolen homes with centuries of practiced strength. "Let go," Evelyn whispered to me. "I'll hold them here." You'll die, I protested, feeling her consciousness weakening. I'm already dead, she replied. My body died that night, but I can still choose how my soul departs. With that, Evelyn's consciousness surged forward with impossible strength, wrapping around both entities like spiritual chains. I felt myself being pulled free, drawn across the room toward my original body. Through the chaos, I saw Rebecca experiencing the same, her consciousness streaming back toward her long-lost form. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was the sight of Evelyn's body, our shared body, collapsing to the floor as the house filled with blinding light. I woke up in my own bed, in my own body. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw Rebecca sitting beside me, looking decades younger now that she was back in her original form. And on the dresser sat Evelyn's journal. It worked, Rebecca said simply. She sacrificed herself to trap them. They've been contained. In the basement, sealed behind newly installed steel doors and painted with hundreds of protective symbols, were two bodies, David's and Evelyn's, now empty vessels housing trapped entities that could no longer escape, to claim new victims. As for me, I've moved away from that house, that town, that life. But sometimes when I look in the mirror, I catch a glimpse of someone else looking back. Just for a moment, a familiar presence that feels less like a haunting and more like a guardian. Evelyn's final gift, a piece of herself, left behind to warn me if the travelers ever find their way back into our world. Because some doors once opened can never be truly closed again. If you survive this nightmare until the end, prove it by hitting like and sharing with someone who needs to be terrified today. Comment below what you would do if you woke up in someone else's body. And remember, check the mirror carefully tonight. You never know who might be looking back.